Sometimes we have more than one meeting on a monthly basis. Sometimes we skip them, but we haven't really got out of second gear yet. So we've got a lot of potential to fill, and there's a lot of ideas coming up. So we're definitely going to be stepping our game up as well. We can end. Why not? We'll end the show on some controversy. Let's have a look. I spoke to myself and Mark spoke to Theo Chalmers about Edge Media TV. So maybe Ian, I know you've got links there. You can give us a clue what you think's going on with Edge Media, and something we haven't touched on yet is the Jane Burgermeister situation. So what are your thoughts on those two?
Well, first of all, Edge Media. I mean, there is the fact that it's still broadcasting is a good sign.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that's going on that's going through the legal process at the moment, so not really in a position to discuss that.
Yeah.
But whilst it's broadcasting, it's a good sign. So let's just sort of keep focused on the positive. And I mean, we have got the Edge Media Rescue Fund established. And out of that, we are in the process of setting up Edge Media TV Online, which will hopefully go live at the end of this month. Yeah. And then obviously, hopefully, we can get Edge Media TV back on track early in the autumn.
Absolutely. So, I think the question I asked Theo that he wasn't sure about himself was, I didn't understand how it became at risk of being shut down. Was it the end of a contract period, or was it a funding aspect? That's what I haven't.
Yeah, it's funding. I mean, the guys that have funded Edge Media for 2 years now have basically put in $500,000 of their own money. Right. I mean, this comes back once again. Now, obviously, they've got other business interests.
Yeah.
And they felt that, and in fact, it came about with one of the owners actually coming up to the Beyond Knowledge conference in Liverpool in April of 2008, and this guy had a channel number, and he was still unsure at the time of what the channel was actually going to broadcast.
Yeah, yeah.
And this guy and I had a conversation after, I'd never met him before, but after the Beyond Knowledge event, and I just run the first Alternative View event in Totnes the week previous. And he asked whether, I thought that an alternative type TV channel, could actually be worthwhile. And of course I said, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had absolutely no contact with Edge Media really for about 6 months. Mm-hmm. In fact, my relationship with Edge Media really took off after David Shaler named me as the Antichrist. On one of Frankie Marr's show, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course they were extremely apologetic for David's comment and observation. But actually, from that, it led to, me obviously establishing more of a relationship with them.
Yeah.
But not financial in any way, because, these guys were in a different league to me. Mm-hmm. But full credit to them, because they put in, say, over the 2 years, they put in $500,000 of their own money.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, of course, what was happening was that they were focusing their business efforts into their other businesses, and not on Edge Media. And eventually, basically, they just reached a point where, with the recession and everything else, their other business activities were feeling the pinch. Yeah. And so they had to say, look, we're just going to have to call it a day.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I called them and I said, guys, look, surely we can do something here. Surely we can find a solution to recover. And as it happens, the Ofcom regulations changed in March this year, which actually permitted a channel to be partly financed through viewer donations.
Yeah, that's the bit that I saw. Yeah, totally.
Which is why we set up the Edge Media Rescue Fund. So, we're not out of the woods yet. And certainly, I mean, the viewer donations have been very helpful, but, it's not really enough at the moment to keep the station going.
Yeah.
So we've got to find ways. Once the legal issues are resolved, we have other ideas in terms of sort of seeking the funding we need, because what we really need is about 6 months of funding to be able to put the appropriate structure in place so that the station can be self-funding and be sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, my take on it is there's not enough adverts, there's not enough variation in the advertising. I'm thinking I don't know whether it's because the price is too much to be part of the advertising, or
no, but sorry, look, you have to understand how Sky advertising works.
Right, yeah. So
in the first instance, it's shared, and then the revenues are distributed based on viewing figures.
All right. Okay.
Now, if you're going to get your own advertising, you've got to have an organisation in place. Advertising doesn't manifest out of thin air.
Yeah.
So to get advertising, you've got to employ an advertising manager. To get an advertising manager, you've got to have a budget of probably £50,000 because you've got his salary, you've got all the benefits and everything else. It's £50,000.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm saying, that basically for the station to be sustainable, it needs to be generating revenues of £50,000 a month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But to be able to generate revenues of £50,000 a month, you've got to have an organisation in place to be able to generate those kind of revenues. So what we really need is, what we've got to try and do is we've got to find a way to establish the seed capital, and that seed capital is going to need to be somewhere in the region of about £250,000, £300,000.
Yeah.
To put an organisation in place to employ the people that we need to employ to be able to keep the station going. So this is, it's unfortunate that, the guys at Edge Media, weren't actually able to devote as much time and energy to making the station sustainable. So unfortunately, eventually, when they realised how much it was costing them, they just felt they had no choice but to pull the plug. And that's what we've got to try and turn around.
So the edgemediarescue.co.uk, is that I think that's the website, isn't it?
That's it, edgemediarescue.co.uk. And, I say every donation, is obviously gratefully received. And, what we're going to be doing is every person that has contributed to the Edge Media Rescue Fund, will have, some degree of free access to the Edge Media TV online.
All right. Yeah, that's good. Cause, a lot of people really do want to get into the archive and watch previous shows. I see that a lot.
Exactly.
And we've all got friends and family who aren't necessarily part of the movement, but they'll still happily watch hours and hours worth of Edge Media, and can talk to them about it, and it's great. I mean, it opens up a lot of conversational avenues. It's definitely helped me with some members of family, so it's a positive thing. And I think anyone else.
And it's why we need to keep it on the air if possible, because when stuff's on the web, which is great, but basically you've got to know what you're looking for on the web to go find it. Yeah. The beauty of the Sky Channel 200, and we know this from people that come along to alternative view events, is a lot of people stumbled across it, just by surfing.
Yeah.
And in fact, I mean, even, a long lost cousin of mine got back in touch with me because she happened to be surfing and one day stumbled across 200 when they were broadcasting one of my DVDs.
Wild.
And she got back in touch with me on that basis. So, the beauty of 200 is that we reach out to the people that are, if you like, ready to start taking this stuff on board.
That's it.
And then the synchronicity comes along and, creates the opportunity for them to see 200.
Okay, great. Well, before we start finishing the show with a bit of talk about what's going on with the swine flu and people involved in this sort of exposure of it, I've got a question for us three to think about, which we can give our answers to at the end. Which 3 books would you recommend, preferably that are relatively obtainable at a reasonable price? I mean, I think I know which 3 I would say. So before we leave at the end of the show, we'll tell our audience what 3 books we would recommend. So we're going to be hitting the streets again some point soon to get our table back out and start speaking to the public, handing out some information about swine flu and about the agenda behind that. So, and obviously we touched on the characters that are helping to spread the truth, that have been doing it for years. And obviously, James Burgermeister's controversial situation that's going on at the minute. I mean, so many people now are being labelled negatively, either by her or somebody posed as her online. I mean, what's your experience on the whole situation on that one, Ian?
Well, I have to say that my experience of Jane Burgermeister is not very positive.
Yeah.
I first met Jane Burgermeister at a conference in Kirkcaldy last December, and Jane was quite a strange individual. I mean, first of all, she was the only speaker to effectively read her speech. I mean, she read her speech from her computer, and every time, the computer screen moved a little bit too fast or too slow, she didn't seem to be able to freeform. I mean, she couldn't ad lib. And then I spent some time in the evening speaking with her, and I just felt very uncomfortable. I mean, her knowledge was actually quite shallow in some areas. Anyway, I just let it pass. But I was aware that she had been asked previously to provide evidence to support her claims that she had actually filed charges against Baxter and Novartis.
That's right, yeah.
Anyway, I had another alternative view event planned for this spring.
Mm-hmm.
And so I contacted her and I said, Jane, look, I've got an alternative view coming along. Would you be interested in being a speaker? And she said, well, yes, I would. And I said, okay, I'm interested in having you as a speaker, but I really need to see the links to the evidence that you have filed the charges.
Yeah.
Which seemed reasonable to me because, I mean, the alternative view is a high caliber event. We produce a very, very high caliber program and brochure, with articles. And you will never hear the word conspiracy mentioned at an alternative view event because we focus on fact.
Absolutely.
Right? And so obviously what I wanted to be sure of, I wanted to be able to post the links of Jane's charges because you got to understand that when somebody says they file charges, basically what they're saying is that, look, I'm out in front, I'm taking a lead role here, I'm filing charges, everybody else fall in behind me.
Yeah, yeah.
And effectively what they do is they say, okay, well, I don't have to worry about that issue because that person is obviously taking care of it. They filed charges. So I just wanted, simplistically, the evidence. And to be honest, I thought, well, it's not going to be a problem, is it? She's just going to simply send me the URLs.
Yeah, that's it.
To the links of the documentation of the charges. But no, what happened? I got a very, very aggressive email accusing me of being a disinfo agent, and she was going to file charges against me for defamation of character. Well, I just wrote back, and I mean, I've got the whole paper trail.
Yeah.
I wrote back and I said, Jane, hang on, this is outrageous. I said, look, I have simply asked you to let me have the links to the information proving that you have filed charges. I said, come on, what could be more reasonable than that?
I remember reading.
Anyway, so she sent me a couple of attachments, which were in German, and then basically said, here you are, here's what you're looking for, and if you can't read German, that's your problem. Well, it just so happened that, my neighbour was German.
Yeah.
So I took them to my neighbour and I said, can you just read these documents for me? And she had no idea what they were. So she read them out. And I knew immediately what they were. They were confirmations of receipt of correspondence.
Yeah,
I mean, it was exactly the same as you would get if you wrote a letter to your MP, and they were just acknowledging the receipt of the correspondence that you had sent them. So there's a hell of a difference between receiving an acknowledgement of correspondence than filing charges, because by definition, filing charges means that you have initiated legal process.